British politics seems to be fragmenting and in chaos. We've got a whole bunch of Conservatives in different parties on the right, a whole bunch of Socialists in different parties on the left. And we've got Rupert Lowe somewhere in there too. Is it time to aim high? Vote Lowe.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you!
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. That's exactly what you're doing. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome to Lembit Öpik Live here on Unprecedented TV with me, Lembit Öpik. Yes, there's a clue in the name, where we find the facts, kill the spin, and tell it like it is as best we can on stories all around the world. Well, as I address you today, it seems that politics has never been more fragmented in the United Kingdom, with a fractious by-election in the north of England, Gorton and Denton, which at time of broadcast hasn't happened yet, but I safely predict Labour will lose it. We're seeing a tussle between the Greens and Reform, but we're seeing another tussle too between Rupert Lowe's Restore UK party and Ben Habib's Advance UK party. Now, which is right and which is wrong? Are they both on the right? And then on the left, we've got a remarkably powerful, or at least a remarkably popular Green Party. Why are they doing so well when, in my opinion at least, they represent the middle class and not the working class? Well, all of this has caused to fragment the polls. And with Reform UK still in the lead there, is it possible that this will help Nigel Farage get to Downing Street? Or can we really not say anything about what's going to happen in the next general election at all? That's the question I want to ask. And is it time for Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib to combine? Joining me now is a very good friend of Unprecedented TV. It's Dr. Marcus Papadopoulos. Marcus, we've never had so many parties to choose from, have we?
No, we haven't. And it is a demonstration of how the British people have not only woken up, but they are also aware that the British state has not only gone to war with them, but also hates them. The British people are extremely angry, and that is why the traditional mainstream parties in Britain, Labour, the Conservatives, and the Liberal Democrats, are falling apart.
And I, by the way, have to correct it. I called them Restore UK. It is confusing, even for me, only been in politics professionally for 40 years. They, of course, call themselves Restore Britain. That's Rupert Lowe's party. Ben Habib's party is called it's called Advance UK. So that's Restore Britain and Advance UK. We got Reform UK as well. All, in my view, fighting for the same ground. But let's begin at the beginning here. It does seem that Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib are very much trying to be the contenders to Reform UK. Now, as I say, this is being broadcast shortly before the poll, the by-election, which is really a referendum on Keir Starmer in Gorton and Denton near Manchester, where, because Starmer was terrified of the prospect of Andy Burnham, a very popular Labour politician going back into Parliament, they junked him. They wouldn't let him stand. So they're bound to lose that vote now. So we're talking at a time where, if you're watching in the archive, you can see if we're right or wrong. I'll make some predictions here, Marcus. Let's start with the predictions and do the analysis. I predict that this by-election is between the Greens and Reform UK. It could be either of them that wins, but it definitely won't be anybody else. Advance UK might do okay. I'm not sure about that, but I'm not sure necessarily that they'll win. Are you willing to make any predictions, Marcus?
I think what you've just said is more or less my opinion. What would be very interesting is if Rupert Lowe's party, Restore, were fielding a candidate there. That would be extremely telling, because Rupert appeals to the average Briton. He appeals to the average British man and woman all across the UK. Ever since he was expelled from Reform by Nigel Farage, which was clearly politically orchestrated, and I don't just believe by Nigel Farage and Tice. Ever since that happened, the British people have become aware of him, and he represents the views, he represents the sentiments of the ordinary British person. And I have said this for the last year now. I believe that no one in the House of Commons has done more for Britain, has done more for the British people in the last 30 years than Rupert Lowe. He is doing a superb job. And as I said, it would have been extremely interesting to see how a Restore candidate would perform in the by-election if one was standing there.
So, yeah, what do you think he's particularly done? What would you say is his finest hour so far, Marcus?
He has stood up for the British person. He has stood up for the British national identity. He has stood up for British heritage. He has stood up for British culture. He has said that enough is enough. This is Britain, and the Britain is being treated like dirt in his own country, in her own country, by the British ruling elite. And that is why he is so popular. He says it as it is. He's absolutely correct. All across the UK, the country no longer resembles Britain. There is nothing remotely British about vast parts of the UK, and Rupert says that. Nigel Farage hasn't said that, and therein lies a very big difference between them. It's really the official the language, traditional language of British officialdom to label someone like Rupert as, quote, extremist. But why is he extremist? Because that means that millions upon millions of Britons are also extreme. There is nothing extreme about what Rupert is saying. What he is saying is this: in Britain, the British people come first. Each and every penny of British taxpayers' money goes to the British people. And if you are a member of an ethnic minority living in the UK, you have to accept British culture, you have to accept British history, you have to accept the British way of life. If you don't like that, that's fine, but then you have to leave the country. It's no different, Lembit, to say India or Nigeria. I would say to a foreigner who is in India or Nigeria, who is criticizing Indian or Nigerian culture and wants to see, for example, multiculturalism introduced to India or Nigeria, I would say to that person, you are utterly disrespectful and you have no place in either India or Nigeria. There's nothing extreme about that.
So let's go back a step here and recall what you mentioned there. Rupert Lowe's departure from Reform UK. Here's one of the headlines, I think. Who is, notice this, Rupert Lowe, LBC misspelling his name, R-U-P-E-T, I don't know, from Southampton chairman to Restore Britain leader. Far right direction announced for former Reform MP who now wants to challenge Nigel Farage. And then it goes on. There's no way back for suspended Member of Parliament Rupert Lowe. This whole departure surprised a lot of people. And also there's much point in us doing a trial by media here. But it's quite clear that he's not going to be going back into Reform anytime soon, I think it's fair to say. In your opinion, do you think that it was wise to eject Rupert Lowe? Was there a better way of doing it, or do you not have a strong view about this?
Well, clearly the leadership of Reform felt threatened by Rupert, because Rupert represents the views of the average Briton. So they were faced with a situation where they had no alternative. What they should have done, I suppose, is they should have vetted him before they allowed him to stand as a candidate in Great Yarmouth at the 2024 election. They clearly didn't vet him properly, because had they would have seen that his stance is very, very different to their stance. So here we are, practically 1 year on after he was expelled from Reform. He is growing in popularity. And I have no doubt, Lembit, that if he was given more air coverage by BBC News or Sky News or Channel 4 News, then Rupert and his party, Restore, would be doing even better than Reform in the opinion polls. The problem facing Rupert at the moment is that for British people to be aware of him, they have to be on social media. Remember, British mainstream media is neither free nor independent. They are controlled by the British state. So they are not going to give Rupert a platform. So that is a challenge. But nonetheless, vast amounts of the British population are on social media. And as a result, they are either already aware of Rupert or they are becoming aware of Rupert. So he poses a very, very serious threat, not to the Labour government, not to the Conservative Party, not to Reform. Rupert poses a threat to the British state, to the British ruling elite.
It was indeed Rupert who, here we are, who pretty much sponsored the rape gang inquiry. He almost single-handedly forced the hand of Parliament, of government, I think, where Labour Party, for whatever reason, Marcus, has been tremendously resistant to having a proper inquiry. And they continue, in my view, to resist it. They continue to stand by and refuse to be particularly proactive on this. We can leave the reasons for that on another occasion. But it's interesting that Rupert Lowe did do this. And this, anything that involves child abuse in Britain enrages the majority of decent people. It's only horrible, disgusting perverts who do it, in my view. And they're the only people who would object to having a rape gang inquiry, which exposes all the paedophiles. That's my opinion. I feel very strongly about every parent should feel strongly about this. But Rupert did seem to take a very strong line on it. Why was it left to him?
It was left to Rupert because none of the other parties were interested in it, which is rather telling. And let me say what is also rather telling, Lembit. I followed Rupert's rape gang inquiry quite closely. And whilst I wasn't surprised by the revelations, nonetheless, they were sickening beyond belief. Absolutely sickening. Some of the most depraved acts were revealed in this rape gang inquiry. But here are two telling realities. Firstly, British mainstream media, both broadcast and print, never ran one article or news report pertaining to Rupert's rape gang inquiry. Zero. You can put that into a search engine, put in Rupert Lowe's rape gang inquiry and see nothing comes up. And secondly, some of the most serious of criminal allegations came out of Rupert Lowe's rape gang inquiry. And yet the British police, to my knowledge, have not been in touch with Rupert. How telling, Lembit, are those two realities? how telling they are.
The issue I've got here is that when you have paedophiles in your own party, and it seems to me that there are quite a few who have been exposed, and also in the BBC, that you've got establishment organisations which are protecting their own people. It does seem to me a really courageous thing to take all of them on, and credit to Rupert for having done it. Other people have tried to jump on the bandwagon since then, but up to date, I have to say, I think Rupert's the person who wins on that one. I don't want to come back to that in the second half of the show because it's a terrible recurring theme, but inevitably we will come back to it, probably because we're going to talk about Peter Mandelson. Just before we go to the break then, in terms of Rupert Lowe, do you feel then, actually, let's cover this now. Do you feel he should be entering some kind of alliance with Ben Habib from Advance UK? Because they do occupy roughly similar territory. They certainly are on the same side of the political pendulum as Reform UK.
I have to be honest, Lembit, I am not fond of coalitions or alliances. I really am not. I believe that Rupert and his party, Restore, need to go it alone, and there is no reason to suggest why they should not go it alone. He has colossal support from the British people, and that will only grow. For example, we both know, Lembit, that the British people, largely speaking, if given an opportunity, would vote to restore the death penalty in the UK. Rupert has acknowledged that. Rupert has expressed his support for the restoration of the death penalty, and he has made it very clear that anyone who rapes a child, who grooms a child, should be given the death penalty. He has also said that anyone who murders a child should also be given the death penalty. That is a sentiment I wholeheartedly concur with. I've always supported the death penalty. I have always supported the death penalty being restored to Britain. And Rupert has said that. And as a result, he's gained even more support amongst the British people. So really, Rupert and his party can go it alone.
Let's come back to this after the break. I want to also play, if you can find it, a clip from Ben Habib. But if we can cue up the Ben Habib clip as well. You're watching me, Lembit Öpik, here on Lembit Öpik live on Unprecedented TV, where we find the facts, kill the spin, tell it like it is. The story so far, Dr. Marcus Papadopoulos thinks that Rupert Lowe should go it alone with Restore Britain. I'm asking if there should be some kind of a merger or understanding between, or non-aggression pact, between Restore Britain, that's Rupert Lowe's team, and Ben Habib's Advance UK. Marcus says no. I wonder what you think as well. Do feel free to like and subscribe at YouTube. That's at Unprecedented TV. And also, please follow me at Lembit Öpik. It's simple enough to find. Before we go any further, please do enjoy Tim Scott Uncancelled. It's a great show. They look at the headlines in the newspaper so that you don't have to. Well, apparently we're not going to see anything. Just try that in. Tim Scott Uncancelled. You'll find that in the archive. As I say, I know I say this a lot, but it really helps us. It's free for you to like and subscribe at Unprecedented TV on YouTube. It'd be fantastic if you can do that. Really appreciate your support there. Story so far, we're talking about Rupert Lowe. That's from Restore Britain, and whether they should work together with Advance UK, or perhaps merge. The two of them should merge with Reform UK so as not to split the vote. still with Dr. Marcus Papadopoulos. Marcus, Ben Habib made an offer. I want to play part of a video that Ben Habib put out recently. He's the head of Advance UK, where he essentially appeals to Rupert Lowe to join forces. Let's have a listen to this.
Declared he was going to convert Restore Britain from a movement to a political party. And it's been 8 days since I made an open offer on air to Rupert Lowe to consider a merger with Advance UK. I've had no response to that open offer. The only response made was in public by Rupert Lowe on X, in which he said I and members of Advance UK would be free to join Restore Britain. But here's the issue, Rupert. I don't know what Restore Britain is. I've had a look at your website, but there's no draft constitution there. Nothing setting out how the leadership is appointed, how the leadership is held to account, how policies are made, how people to your policy-making committees are appointed, how you're going to set up your national network, how people are going to be recruited into the party. None of this is clear on your website. There's no draft constitutional document. The only document about which I'm aware are the Articles of Association of your country, what you've got on Companies House, and that shows a company limited by one share, private limited company, limited by one share which you own, Rupert. You are the owner and dictator of Restore Britain. And I do also know, and people need to know, that you don't believe in a democratic political party. You've said that to me yourself, and your own spokesmen have been on air for the last week saying that actually Rupert Lowe can be trusted to get this done. We don't need a democratic process. I think one of your spokesmen referred to you as Caesar, which is a completely ridiculous turn of phrase, if you don't mind me saying so.
So there's a lot more to that. You can find the entire video on social networks. That sounded to me like a frustrated Ben Habib, making an appeal to Rupert Lowe, but with a degree of impatience. What do you make of that?
Well, based on what was said just now in that clip, there will be no merger with Rupert and his party, Restore. This bizarre allegation that Rupert is, quote, a dictator. Well, quite frankly, Britain is already a tyranny, and there is only one person that is truly, truly standing up to this tyranny in the House of Commons, and that is Rupert Lowe. So he, of course, Habib is perfectly entitled to his opinions, but I disagree with each and every word that he just said. I think.
Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, not all. A key issue for the British people is deporting each and every illegal immigrant. Secondly, the next issue is with confronting legal immigration. Legal immigration and illegal immigration have devastated the UK, absolutely devastated it. And the British people want it to be halted and want it to be reversed. Now, people are aware that I am a supporter of remigration, which was once known as repatriation. And whilst I don't believe Rupert has used the word remigration, it is very clear from his words that he more or less supports that. Again, that is in tune with what the average Briton supports. So the average Briton has to be listened to. The British man and woman has to be masters in their own homes, not in other countries in the world. People also know how bitter an opponent I am of wars, of foreign intervention, of so-called humanitarian wars, be it against Yugoslavia or Iraq or Libya or Syria, etc., etc. I believe each country in the world should be independent, should be sovereign, and each race in the world should be masters in their own countries, in their own homes. And I stand by that for each and every country in the world. I also stand by that for my country, for my people, the British people. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with the British people being masters or in their own country? Of course, there is nothing wrong with that. But the British state, through politicians, mainstream journalists, and charities and think tanks, have demonized that opinion. They have labeled that opinion as racist, as xenophobic, as far right, etc., etc. It is none of those things. It is something which is natural and completely right, and Rupert says it. So quite frankly, what Rupert is saying, whilst I'm a strong supporter of Rupert, what he is saying is not out of the ordinary. It's simply common sense. If you come here illegally, you have broken the law of the United Kingdom, you've committed a crime, you are a criminal, you need to be deported. But instead, nearly £1 billion a month, Lembit, is being spent by the British state on illegal immigrants and other foreign nationals. How on earth is that acceptable?
Let's go to Reform UK now. They arguably made huge inroads into the vote, really at the cost of the Conservatives, and to the chagrin of the Conservatives. But now, I think this is from the Telegraph. No, sorry, it could be. I'll check that. But a Telegraph, the Mail. I'm not sure which.
It's the Telegraph. It's the Telegraph.
Yeah, Daily Telegraph. You're right. And Tim Stanley says reform is turning into the Tories 2.0, and that is a tragedy. But Restore Britain is not the answer. It has become a magnet for angry young men with very short hair. Well, okay, silly comment there, but the sentiment here, you alluded to it before. Reform was considered to be the party that was challenging the migration crisis that you yourself have cited. They're much more likely, if the election was tomorrow, to become the government. Would it not make sense for Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain, Ben Habib and Advance UK to say, we're not completely happy with everything in Reform UK, but united we stand?
I went into the 2024 general election in the UK telling people to stay away from Reform, and in particular, Nigel Farage. Whilst Reform and Farage have highlighted issues regarding immigration, both legal and illegal, they haven't said, for example, that each and every illegal immigrant should be deported. They haven't said that immigration should be halted. Why? That is in line with the British state. That is exactly in line with the British state. And then Rupert is expelled because clearly his views were out of line as far as the leadership of Reform.
That's not the official reason. There was a disciplinary reason that they cite.
And nothing came of it. And nothing came of that.
It might still be going on, actually, for all I know. I think maybe it's still going on at the time of broadcasting. But Karen.
Yes, indeed. There could be things going on behind the scenes. But I'm of the opinion, and I think many British people of the opinion, that it was politically orchestrated. So Rupert Lowe comes along and says, right, we're going to confront and deal with illegal immigration and legal immigration. And he makes it very clear what he, as Prime Minister, what Restore as a government would do regarding illegal and legal immigration. And he has ticked all of the boxes as far as the British people are concerned. Again, I reiterate something I've been saying since 2024, for example, that Nigel Farage has not taken the position regarding immigration that the British people expect. I believe, Lembit, that the average Reform member, the average Reform supporter is a good, patriotic Briton. They love their country, they love their people, they cherish their culture, they cherish their history. But Reform is not the right party for them. And that is being demonstrated by how Reform have not said that they would deport each and every illegal immigrant. They haven't even said that they would halt immigration. Let us not forget, in 2023, approximately 250,000 Indians arrived in the UK. Nearly 250,000. That has to stop, and it has to be reversed. And there's nothing wrong in saying that. It is perfectly acceptable. And again, it is common sense.
Now, just before we move on from reform, I want to finish by talking about the by-election, because I want to put us under some pressure to make some predictions, which will be borne out in the archive forevermore, whether we're right or wrong. This accusation that reform is turning into the Tories 2.0. What do you make of that? Some say that because Nigel Farage has appointed a couple of very prominent former Tories, Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick, who was actually a leadership candidate for the Conservatives, to high office in their brand. Others say this is smart because it means that they've got the experience that Nigel Farage openly says reform needs to become a government at the top of the party. Where do you stand on that one?
Well, for example, Braverman and Jenrick were part of a Conservative government that brought millions of immigrants into Britain. And now they say that they want to be at the heart of resolving the immigration crisis. What complete and utter poppycock. And quite frankly, British people are not falling for that. That is why so many reform councillors have now left the party and have joined Restore. There is nothing clever about moulding reform on the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party, like the Labour Party, like the Liberal Democrat Party, are completely and utterly discredited. All three of them have demonstrated that they are no friend to the British people. And I think that the British people are seeing through reform. And I think as time goes by and more people become aware of Rupert and Restore, more and more people who previously supported and voted reform will change their allegiance to Restore. Again, the challenge for Rupert is that BBC News and Channel 4 News and Sky News are not giving him a platform, which tells you something, tells you that he is regarded by the British state as an enemy. He's an MP, and yet he's not being given a platform. Reform MPs are being given platforms all the time, quite rightly so, they're MPs. But why isn't Rupert being given a single platform? Why is it the Telegraph and the Guardian and BBC News and whatnot are all attacking him? They are attacking him because he's the only one who is truly, truly a severe challenge to not just the status quo in Britain, but the British state.
I want to talk about briefly about the Labour Party. They seem to be in a huge mess now. Shortly before we came on to the broadcast, like last 24 hours, Mandelson was arrested. Peter Mandelson, the former very senior advisor to Tony Blair and bigwig in the Gordon Brown Labour government, and former UK ambassador to America. He was arrested over allegedly accepting. Now, to be clear, this isn't about sexual accusations. It's about passing sensitive information to a paedophile when he was business secretary. And even the paedophile bit doesn't really count. That's not the point. The point is that he broke the public trust. He acted against the public interest, and apparently, or at least against his obligations. And the argument is, he being arrested, that he may have broken the law. Now, this looks terrible for Keir Starmer, who appointed Mandelson, despite all of the alarm bells, all of the warnings, all of the red flags about Mandelson. I could have told Starmer that Mandelson's a liar. He lied to me directly at least twice when I had to work with him on Northern Ireland policy. But he went on ahead. Now, this seems to have really damaged Starmer's credibility. Just a quick one about this, and then we're going to finish about the by-election, which in my view is a referendum on Starmer. Do you think that Starmer has been damaged by this, or has he recovered from his judgment? Or possibly option C, when we see the content of messages between perhaps Downing Street, if they don't try to conceal them, and Peter Mandelson when he was British ambassador. Could that be the downfall of Starmer?
It depends who you're talking about. If you're talking about Labour members, Labour politicians, be it members of Parliament, be it Labour peers, be it Labour councillors, no, because quite frankly, they don't care about such matters, because they are completely at odds with humanity. They are completely at odds with mankind. If, on the other hand, you are talking about the average British man and woman, then yes, this has just served to increase their bitter dislike of Starmer, to increase their dislike even more so of this reprehensible, vile, repugnant, rancid human being. So Starmer says that he will continue on. Well, again, people who are aware of my views will know that I do not believe he's an independent operator. I believe he is a puppet. I believe he is controlled by the British ruling elite. And if he decides to resign, it will not be because he's taken that decision, but because his puppet masters have decided that he has to go. So the Labour Party today is, of course, not a Labour Party. It has nothing in common with the working man and the working woman. It has certainly nothing in common with socialism. It is simply a London-centric and anti-British political party. And one quick thing, Lembit, for many, many years, almost 20 years, and people can check, they can check my track record to see that I'm telling the truth. For nearly 20 years, I said that the British state hates the British people, and that the British state will one day go to war with the British people. I feel vindicated, Lembit, when a lot of people distance themselves from me because of my sentiment back then, nearly 20 years ago, 15 years ago, because now I see it in public, I read it and hear it on social media. So many British people of all ages, young people, middle-aged people, elderly people, are saying that the British state hates the British people and the British state wants the British people gone. This is a very important development, because for things to get better, things have to get worse. And the British people are going through a lot of pain and suffering at the moment. But through pain and suffering, they will become even more enlightened. And this enlightenment is the only thing that can save them. So yes, Lembit, I feel vindicated, but more importantly, I'm absolutely delighted that the average Briton now understands that the British state hates the British people and wants the British people gone.
What about the by-election then? The Greens seem to be doing well. Greens and Reform, UK Circle Labour stronghold in Manchester by-election. I'm going to make a prediction shortly before the election. I think that it is between the Greens and Reform. It'll be 1-2 or 2-1. Labour third. But you never know. Advance could do quite well. They've got somebody I know, but somebody from the local area as a candidate. It's interesting when you actually start drilling down into what the Greens stand for. If you can get that up, it's quite odd. And I mean, basically, it just all kinds of strange. A future unlimited by climate change. Well, they're the ones who are limiting it because they claim there's a climate change. The quality of this picture is not very good. A lot right to digital privacy, but the Greens want to spy on you. They want to restrict you from travelling. And there's all kinds of contradictions here. A referendum on the terms of any EU deal. Well, I think that maybe that's a bit out of date, but everybody knows they want to go back into the European Union. And it's just the whole thing seems to be idealistic. And I have to say, I think it's nonsense myself. I've always thought of the Greens as being hypocrites because they're middle class and they can afford all of this. Here's a quote. Here's a quote from the candidate in the by-election, inviting the Reform candidate to go somewhere. While we're at it, we could talk about net zero. Tackling the climate crisis, making people's homes more comfortable isn't stupid, as Reform likes to claim. It's common sense, especially here. And then 1 in 3 households in Gorton and Dent live in fuel poverty. But the green policies are the reason we've got the fuel poverty. The green policies have made energy more expensive in Britain than just about anywhere else in the world. And yet, Marcus, the polls tell us that they or Reform are going to win. Why are the Greens doing so well, despite what I consider to be their completely balmy policies?
Something else, Lembit, I have said on television for a number of years now is this: beware the Green Party. How telling it is that Green Party policies are essentially the policies of the Conservative Party, of the Labour Party, and the Liberal Democrat Party. Therefore, the policies of the Green Party are in line with the British state, or the British ruling elite, or however you wish to describe the dark forces which rule, not govern, which rule the United Kingdom. People should stay well away from the Green Party. It is a hateful party. It supports war. It supports the war in Ukraine. So again, beware the Green Party. It is in line with the British state. And I think you're right, Lembit. I think as regards to the forthcoming by-election, the Conservative Party and the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrat Party are undoubtedly out of the running. It is most likely going to be out of the Green Party and Reform. Clearly, the Green Party will take a lot of its support from Labour Party, from Labour voters. So I would say that yes, your analysis is correct. It's going to be out of those two parties. But in all of this, what is truly the difference? Truly the difference between Reform and the Green Party? When you break it down, there's not that much difference. Reform might say certain things, but they don't put it into practice. They don't put it into policy. Whereas Rupert's Restore Party says something very different, and they put that very different thing into writing. So again, I reiterate, people should stay well away from the Green Party, as they are staying away from the Conservative Party and the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrat Party. Beware the Green Party.
And my old party used to be very good at winning by-elections, the Liberal Democrats. Why do you think that the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, isn't making an inroad? There he is. There's Ed Davey. Does he strike you as Prime Minister material?
I'm trying not to laugh at the photograph which the gallery has just put up. Well, I suppose if Keir Starmer can be Prime Minister, then why can't Sir Ed Davey? If Angela Rayner is in pole position to be next Prime Minister, then why can't dear old Sir Ed Davey? Again, it just reinforces what I've been saying for many years now, that the British state is directly controlling government in Britain. It doesn't matter who is in Downing Street. And I will say this about your old party, Lembit. I truly feel sorry for classical liberals. Classical liberals, for example, in the West Country, in Devon, Dorset and Cornwall, because they clearly have nothing in common with the Liberal Democrat Party. I think the classical liberal, whilst I'm not a liberal, I've never have been a liberal, but whilst the classical liberal is a good person, their heart is in the right place, they must be absolutely feeling dejected to see what the Liberal Democrat Party is like today. And as you
That's what they're like today.
There you have it. When there are so many people, Lembit, who are victims of crime, when children have been massacred in Southport, when women are being raped, when people, more and more people are falling into poverty, more and more children are on the breadline. And what is the response of Sir Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, to act like the complete and utter prat that he is? That just shows the contempt of the Liberal Democrat Party to the British people.
Okay, I'm guessing you won't be voting Lib Dem anytime soon. Thank you so much. That is Dr. Marcus Papadopoulos, almost on the eve of the by-election in Gorton and Denton. We both make the same prediction, probably too close to call between the Greens and Reform. I say Labour third, and maybe Advance fourth, who knows? And Dr. Papadopoulos also says he has great respect for Rupert Lowe. I have to say, I've got a lot of time for Ben Habib too. I wonder if over time this will all sort itself out and there will be some realignment there. If you have Reform UK and Restore Britain and Advance UK all on the same side, together with the Conservatives, that could be exactly the split that the left want. But what's the Green Party going to do too? I'll say this, though. If the Greens got to be the government, it would be a great gift for comedians and an absolute disaster for the country. That's my view. But I'd love to interview the leader of the Green Party, David Poulton, who now calls himself Zach Polanski. I want to give him a platform. That's what free speech is all about. Thanks to Marcus. Thanks to the team. More than anything, thanks to you. And please do like and subscribe at Unprecedented TV on YouTube. And please tell us what you think as well. And follow me on X. That's at Lembit Öpik. I am Lembit Öpik. That was Lembit Öpik Live.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages.